Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all very much for coming here this evening. I was not sure at what audience I'm aiming at and what exactly you want to hear from me. So I thought that I would pitch in the middle band and just talk about the book, how I've designed it, how I've laid it out, its content, and most importantly, perhaps, how it even came into being. Because this is a work of creation, and creation comes from seemingly nowhere. It arises as something, and then it goes somewhere. That is perhaps the closest possible definition I can give to the meaning of the Rainbow Bridge. Like a rainbow, it appears, it abides a while, and it disappears again. To where? From where? Likewise, the word bridge. Bridge is an interesting concept. I mean, we can look at it on many, many different levels. A bridge is something that unites two parts that are previously separate. I just want you to hold that thought for a minute, because a bridge goes two ways. From which way you cross that bridge, it doesn't really matter. It's going to lead from one side to the other side. Depending on which side you started, you will end up on the other side. But principally, you are crossing something that was an obstacle to those two sides being together beforehand. And this is another very, very important aspect of the Rainbow Bridge, because I mention on the bookmark, in the prologue, this is the prologue of the book, this first passage, it points out the most important aspect of the Rainbow Bridge, which is our transcending of consciousness from its, let's say, most rough aspect to its purest and most, I don't want to use words at this point. It's not something that I as a human being want to define, but I think you know what I mean. We are going from something very, very rough to something more than smooth. I'm going to read you this first little verse of the Rainbow Bridge, which is on your bookmark. So if you want to follow at the same time, please do. I give you one task, O reader of this text. Ingest the fire of wisdom nectar and digest each word, then conjure the picture. For this translation is of images, now evaporated and replaced with words of human awareness, the clarity of perception ever determining the nature of appearance as it crosses the Rainbow Bridge to its birthless existence. So that sums up the point that I was making beforehand, this idea of crossing from one aspect or state of mind to another aspect or state of mind, and so-called improving on the way. Improving, what does that mean? I mean, everything is relative. Improving to one is getting worse to another. Again, I don't want to use words to define things that I'm not capable of judging. Anyhow, back to the main point of this evening. I would like to discuss with you the design, the layout, and the content of the book, and further to that, how the book came into being. The design is something that is very, very integral to the meaning of the book, because I found this photograph, actually. I'm going to tell you the story of how I found this photograph, because this is the only photograph in the whole book that is not taken by myself. I could have used a number of photographs of my own, but this was the one that I had to use. I found it in a little internet cafe around stupa at Bodhanath in Kathmandu, where I was living at the time. And I said, that's it. This is the picture I need. This is a very key monastery in the center of the Muktinath Valley in Mustang, and my whole collection of photographs is from this same valley. I think you've all had a little look through the book and you've seen that there's a photograph on practically every page. And I've taken all the photographs in this valley of Muktinath. So this photograph that I found in this internet cafe was just perfect for this purpose. Why? Because there was a rainbow arching across the whole sky. So I thought, okay, I need to cut this in half so that when the reader opens the book, in effect, the reader is opening the rainbow. I mean, how do we open a rainbow? I mean, that takes some thinking and some, that's also a whole presentation. Anyhow, so you cross the rainbow bridge to its midway point and then you open the rainbow. Now inside, you will see that all the borders are covered. Each edge is covered with one of the rainbow colors, starting from violet and ending with red. Now, purposefully, we actually designed it that way, that it would go from violet to red, because inside the book, the chapters go from red to violet. Now, that is a very, very important point, because it doesn't matter which way you cross the rainbow. It's like two sides of the bridge. You cross from one side to the other. It's a two-way thing. One side could be red and the other side could be violet. Swap it around. The other side could be violet and the other side could be red. So what? It doesn't matter. So I wanted to make this point very, very clear, that it is a two-way bridge. Now, earlier I said we are crossing from our, essentially in life we are crossing from our, let's say, rough quality of awareness, let's say call it perception, to our, let's say, smooth quality of awareness, on this trail of consciousness. I want to talk about the two-way aspect of this. We are not just crossing from the rough to the smooth, we are also crossing back from the smooth to the rough, all the time. I mean, look at just an example of this place here, in this room. This is potentially just empty space. Take away this whole building, take away the whole habitat center, take away everything that's here, the chairs, the desks, everything else. This is just empty space. Yet something is appearing here. Let's not start to ask the question why, because a multitude of causes and conditions have had to come into place in order for this building to be here at this particular point of space, for these chairs and tables to be sitting here at this particular shape and design and angle, and for you and me, all of us, to be sitting here, standing here tonight. It's a miracle. In every moment of our lives, this miracle is occurring, but we pass it by again and again because life is too busy. We fail to notice this wonderful miracle that is happening all the time. Empty space has form, and then form, let's say after 100 years, will this habitat center still be here? Who knows? Probably not. So this is a point that is very, very constant in the Rainbow Bridge, is this idea of crossing from one side to the other and back again. And what do we have? Once we have a bridge in place, we no longer have two sides. We have just one. There is a union. Before there was no union. Before there were just two sides. And once the bridge is there, there is a union. So how do we put together the union of this empty space with the form that is appearing within it? How can they be simultaneously occurring together? That is a dilemma that many, many people, let's say, get stuck on as they are following a spiritual path. How can it be what seems to be an absolute opposite? How can it be the same thing? And this is really worth focusing on. At this point, I'm going to read to you the first part of the Rainbow Bridge, which is entitled The Pen. Now, I love this section, and this is why I've chosen to read it to you tonight, because it is so poignant to each one of our every moment of life that I actually use this in my everyday life now. I imagine myself as this pen, writing along with, say, the words I'm speaking now to you. And the key point of this is that the pen should not distract the reader with words that are just useless and nonsensical and will cause judgment and comparison and all the things that lead to complication and things that we don't really need to be thinking about or talking about. Anyhow, I will ask you while I am reading this to not to analyze the words and not to intellectualize the words and not to think too much about them, but just to feel them. Just to feel them. If you have a copy of the book in front of you, then you can also follow. I am starting on page 21. This section follows on from the prologue that I read to you just earlier, and it sets the ground for the whole book. The whole of the rest of the book is based on this. This is setting the scene so that one's mind as the reader is placed in a suitable position, if you can place mind in a position, that is. The page is blank, the pen wet, poised above the pregnant emptiness. Anything may arise, may appear in forms that speak their truth through a multitude of displays. For inside each character, each letter is contained the essence of the unity of light and sound. Thus with light as pure bliss and sound as pure emptiness, the great truth is proclaimed. O pen, please keep your true nature in mind and form union with the empty space. So just as I use the example of the room, the empty room, so our life is like a blank piece of paper that at every moment we can write whatever we like upon, or draw whatever we like upon. We are the artists. We are the creators of what comes next. But I hesitate to say, and I know this from my own experience, sometimes the page is so full already that there's no space left to write on it. So then what do we do? Do we have to erase what's on there? Or do we have to simply realize the nature of that page, which is theoretically always blank? I'm going to continue. You are no longer a pen and blank page separated, but together you invite awareness. For as the letters appear, they stir the perception, the third participant in the game of being. Remember that awareness as an immortal combination of bliss and emptiness. Whatever appears remains ever this. So we have the blank page and we have the pen. Now the pen can't do anything on that page without, I've called it here in awareness, but you could call it intelligence or perception. Now I don't want to confuse these different words, because we've now used consciousness, we've used intelligence, we've used perception, and we've used awareness. And where is the difference between these aspects? I have defined perception and awareness very, very clearly in the Rainbow Bridge. And I've used perception to determine that, let's say, relative aspect of awareness. Relative aspect of awareness meaning that which appears. In our minds we have thoughts, we have speech, we have action, we have the relative form that appears around us. I have called this perception. And awareness I have likened to the blank page, the open space. Anything may appear within that open space. Anything may appear upon that blank page. Anything may appear within our awareness. But we are the orchestrators of that creation. So must we be very, very careful with what we design. The mind is so powerful, it has the capacity to create anything. Anything it may imagine, as far as it can imagine it to go. I mean, it's wonderful. Actually, it's such a wonderful thing. It's another amazing miracle about our existence is that we have this capacity, but we are limited because our pages are just so full of stuff already written on them, and there's no space to create. So hence, the point again and again made in the Rainbow Bridge is to recognize the nature of that page. It's always empty, although it seems to be colored with all sorts of appearance. It is fundamentally blank. That's very refreshing because it clears a lot of clutter immediately from the mind. We can say, oh, I thought I was so busy and there's some space there. Now I can do what I really wanted to do. I can create something that I aspired to create. I mean, after all, what is creation? Creation is just us as ordinary individuals opening our minds and thinking about something, and then perhaps talking about it with somebody, and then putting it into action, and then, whoa, lo and behold, there it is. It could be anything. It can be business. It can be art, painting, writing, cooking, child-minding. It can be anything, anything. Our life is one huge, vast act of creation. So this third aspect, the awareness that I mention here, you are no longer a pen and blank page separated, but together you invite awareness. So the idea of the mind ready to spill its creation onto this blank page, but it needs that intelligence, it needs that awareness in order to create something. So let's continue. O pen, your job is futile, for whatever you say is always that same combination of bliss and emptiness. If your perception, the manifesting tool of awareness, strays from that understanding, then you will write nothing of the truth. Yet, just as you may not speak the truth, it will always be contained within, for the nature of the letters on the page are simply your union with it. So here I introduce another aspect of creation. When we just focus on the idea of a blank page and a piece of paper and that anything could be created, it kind of makes anything that appears on that page as is just an act of creation. So what's the point? Why? Why do we create? Why do we want to create? And here I continue. Thus bliss appears as letters and emptiness as their sound, perception as their meaning, both inherent within. How wonderful the marvels that may appear from your tripartite union. But even though they seem to appear, they never actually appeared at all. That blissful emptiness of intrinsic awareness stirred, played, and then rested again in its true state. Yet in truth it never awoke from its timeless poise, but seemed to while spontaneously holding the marvelous display of bliss and emptiness, understanding itself as their union. So again we have the aspect of the rainbow. Whatever appears on that piece of paper is destined to appear, to abide a while, and to again disappear. Why do we attach ourselves to what is? We get into this act of creation and then we grasp onto it like it's the only thing in existence, and then, oh my God, we suffer when it has to disappear. And that is the reality of everything that is in our lives. We can hold on to nothing, but we can just appreciate it while it is there. Like the rainbow in the sky, how beautiful when it appears after the storm. But we know that it's going to be gone within 10 or 15 minutes. So we just behold it while it's there and then let it go when it's gone. We know the nature of the rainbow. Nobody has to teach us because we've seen it. We've seen what happens in the sky. We have to let it go. We cannot say, stay there, stay there, stay there. We can take a picture of it perhaps and let it remain as a photograph, as a memory, but we cannot keep it there forever. So this transitory nature of everything that is happening is like the rainbow. Our life is like a rainbow. It is beautiful, but it is destined to disappear, just as it is destined to reappear again. I'm going to continue. And so is revealed true mind from the union of these three, the eternal Guru. You, pen, are the Guru. Trust firmly in your true nature and inject confidence in your form. O pen, you are but a novice to the page. Do you know where you are going and why? What is the reason for such work? For all that appears as a result of your union with the page is but an expression of the nature of that union. Let your design reflect that blissful state, your constant, empty nature. Now, emptiness is a word that is used again and again throughout our various spiritual teachings. And emptiness should not be confused with a void or a blank nothingness. At the beginning of the Rainbow Bridge, I use a term which I think is quite apt for emptiness, the pregnant emptiness. It is empty, yet it is full of potential. Anything may arise, but it's not there yet. It's like the blank page. It's empty, but anything could arise upon that page. So here, where I say, let your design reflect that blissful state, your constant empty nature, it means that on that, whatever the pen has written on the page, it has appeared there, but its fundamental nature is empty of any inherent reality. And let the reader, I'm coming on to this point in a minute, let the reader also grasp onto that point and not attach to the words, but let them just be their nature of words. words just appearing and again disappearing. Now we come to the nature of sound. Because, okay, English is not Sanskrit or ancient Egyptian, for example. I know these languages have very, very powerful qualities of sound, that when you actually hear the vibration, it creates an effect reverberates throughout your inner system, and it can affect change to your whole consciousness. But let us not look down upon English, as English is also sound, and the letters also have form. And if you have learned English as a language, then the letter A in its form means something to you. You read it upon the page and it hits your eye, and you know it is the letter A, and you know it sounds A, and you can recognize it as such. So it has an effect on you. It has an effect on your consciousness. And so does every other sound. So every language containing sound is as important as any other. For your words have power on perception, can influence, can mold and mutate it into anything at all. Take responsibility for such endeavour, as the ways of perception can bring rise to trickery. Then the essence seems lost, although it is always there. So you see, as the pen is writing, the pen has to be very, very careful that it is not writing words that may cause trouble or discomfort or judgment to the reader. The pen instead has to write words that are going to keep the reader's mind in a state of awareness where he or she may understand the true nature of the words. Not of the meaning of the words, but the true nature of the words, their essential meaning, not their relative meaning. Relative meaning in the sense that, oh, that sounds, well, that's good, or that's bad, or that kind of sounds difficult to understand, or I prefer to put it a bit like that, or, all this judgment comes up in our mind, and suddenly we're sort of distracted by the whole essential meaning of the thing, of the words. So the pen has to be very, very careful that it keeps the reader attentive to the essential meaning of what words are. Words are sound, and sound has direct influence upon our consciousness. Now the other important word used here is light. Light and sound. Light, with its visual aspect, has its effect upon our consciousness, and sound, with its audible aspect, has effect upon our consciousness. And when these two come together, it has a double effect upon our consciousness. And then we enter into judgment, and then we get lost off on some kind of track. And there we are. This is just a whole load of words that have created us some kind of headache. What's the point? Let's not bother starting to read in the first place. I'm not saying that one should not intellectualize or judge or talk about books or writings or things that have appeared, because that is something quite interesting to do if you want to hold a debate. The point that I'm making here in the pen is to see the nature of the words directly and to stay with their essential meaning. The words appear in form, light. The words appear as an audible aspect, sound. Light and sound. But light and sound is nothing without the intelligence to perceive it. And I'm calling that here awareness. I divide awareness into two aspects: relative and absolute. let's come back to the point of the bridge that I made earlier. The two sides of the bridge that unite whatever those two sides are as one. Let us look at the meaning of relative awareness and absolute awareness. Because if we bring our mind to that state of union of relative and absolute awareness, we can directly perceive the essential aspect and meaning of anything that appears in front of our eyes. And that clears a whole load of clutter. That reduces the scribbling and colours on that beautiful blank piece of paper that we need in order to design our lives in the way we want to design them. I mean, we can talk about destiny and fate and, oh, it is my destiny to write this book. It is my destiny to whatever. But nothing comes about unless we perforce it to come about. The thought comes in the mind. I would like to write a book. And then it happens or it doesn't happen, as too often things don't happen that we would wish to do because, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have time, or something else is more important, or whatever. These are all the colours and shapes which are written on our blank piece of paper that we would like to design in a certain way, but we can't because they're already too full of clutter. I use the word clutter in a minute in this, so I wanted to use that word clutter now, because it's really good to see how our busyness is actually just a lot of clutter. And if we sift through that clutter, we can really create a lot of space to do what we really want to with our lives, which are precious, fleeting, rainbow moments, gone in a flash, appearing beautifully, but gone in a flash. So remain with that essence, using sound and light as your tools to display its truth. The blank page as space upon which it may appear, the meaning encoded within, yet designed perfectly on the exterior to mirror that core. Now, here we have the aspect of the mirror. This is perhaps the most important and one of the key repetitive aspects of the Rainbow Bridge is the aspect of the mirror. How our absolute pure awareness is mirrored into reality through our conscious perception and becomes that form. From nothing, something appears. It happens all the time, so we don't treat it as a miracle, but if you look at how it happens, it is truly a miracle. How we can, for example, be on the phone to a friend and say, hey, let's meet up for a coffee tomorrow. Okay? 10 o'clock, such and such a place, such and such a whatever. Okay, so we meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and then out of that meeting, we decide that we're going to go to the theatre on Friday night. So then we go to the theatre on Friday night, and by chance there's another friend that's there who I introduce my friend to, who says, okay, so you're an architect and I'm an architect, let's build a skyscraper. Just because I spoke on the phone to my friend on a Tuesday evening. I mean, if we looked at all the chains and the causes and conditions for things to appear in our lives, we could never say where it began and we could never say where it will end. It is just an ongoing chain, multiple chain of events. But each one is as important, and if we lose track of that, and if we are not aware of the importance of each moment, that the effect that it is having on the future, or the effect it is going to have on everybody else. Because we think we're only affecting the few people who are around us, but I affect you, and you affect somebody else, and somebody else, and in the end the whole world's affected. That's how easy it is to create change in this world. It's a pyramid. It starts with one and it ends with billions. And where do you stand? In truth, your words have no position, yet they appear on the page in specific places, one in front of the other, lending meaning to the next and the one before. By the power of your union with the page, you give birth to space and time. As you write, both the moment in which you write each syllable and the place it occupies form an impression on perception that inherently knows its true nature, yet understands the words. Do not cause perception to awaken its judgment, for there is nothing to judge. Now this is a very, very important point again. I know I keep saying very, very important. So I'm judging it myself, but I keep saying very, very important. Anyhow, very, very important in my terms means it gets repeated again and again throughout the book. It's highlighted, in other words. Here, there is a bridge between that absolute state and relative state of being. Space and time. By the power of your union with the page, you give birth to space and time. At the moment that the nib of the pen touches the paper and a mark is created, suddenly there is a relative meaning to the page. Before it was empty, there was nothing there, nothing to talk about it except it's an empty piece of paper and there's nothing on it. What else can we say about it? Not much. It's just an empty piece of paper. But now we have a mark on the page. Oh, the mark is in the middle, it's at the top, it's on the side, it's on the left, it's on the right. Oh my goodness, how much we can say about that one little mark on the paper. So by the power of your union with the page, you give birth to space and time. Now the mark has a position, and there is a time in which that mark appeared. It wasn't there before, and from this moment onwards it will be there. But oh, lo and behold, the mark is going to change into a letter B. So now we have much more to say about it. It is a letter B, and it's at the top of the page, and it is the second letter of the alphabet, and it sounds like B, and now that really gets our minds going. Now we can really start to think about things. Ooh, wait a minute, we're going to get lost in some kind of distraction. So let's just leave it there. It's so what? It's just a B on a blank piece of paper. It's just a letter B. And what does it really mean to us? The letter B sitting on a blank piece of paper. It's just an appearance on the empty space. Let's leave it at that, otherwise our minds are going to go off into all sorts of tangents and we're going to get distracted, and let's just leave it at that. And where do you stand? In truth, your words have no position, yet they appear on the page in specific places, one in front of the other, lending meaning to the next and the one before. So let's put an A after our B, and let's put a T after the A, and we've got the word bat. Wow, now let's start talking about bat. If you're a cricket fan, it's a bat to play cricket with. If you're an animal expert, it's a thing that flies around at night and has whatever, is blind. And if you're a kid, then it's a bat and ball. I don't know. Everybody will have their own way of interpreting what bat means. And again, we're off on a huge tangent. We can create a whole story about this word bat, which is sitting on a blank piece of paper. But from the letter B, B, which had one meaning, we've now got the word bat, which has another meaning. And then if we add bat and ball, the cat played bat and ball. Oh my goodness, now we've got a whole sentence to deal with. Your words, too, are clutter for the eternal space. Now, when I read that, I feel kind of ashamed to be standing up here talking about things so much. Like, my words are just clutter for the eternal space. Stand in the heart of time and space so that you may connect to its essential truth, the eternal Guru, to become its meaning by trusting its meaning. Now here we're moving into another point. We're not just now the three aspects of light, sound, and awareness, the three essential aspects that we need in order to create, to be created. But we are talking about something which is invisible, and that is trust. Every religion on earth and every spiritual path has this word as one of its fundamental meanings, trust. Without the energy of trust or faith or whatever you want to call it, devotion, the energy is energyless. It doesn't have anything there. It is truly empty. Like this, you too are the Guru, dear pen, manifest in form and sound, but a reflection of your inner awareness. Keep your awareness in that nature, and you will reflect this threesome perfectly in your words. For those words are but the mere tips of the rays of light, upon which dance the deities of perception, manifest through the songs of intrinsic awareness that lies at the core of the ray. Bursting into rainbow colours, that playful energy of true being displays itself in your speech. Feel the deities dance as you scratch the surface of the blank page. Intrinsic awareness manifest as words. So remain in the centre and proclaim your message. But what is that message, you may consider? But why be curious? For the matter is self-revealing. Self-revealing. If we have a blank piece of paper, does that mean if we have a blank piece of paper, we just take a pen and do, and something beautiful will appear? What is the meaning of self-revealing? We cannot design anything on that blank piece of paper without intelligence, without awareness, without consciousness. Consciousness which is directed in a certain way. And in a sense it is our responsibility to find what is that. What is that focus? Only each one of us knows what his or her focus can be. But that means we have to be very, very honest with ourselves. First we have to throw out the clutter and let the page be empty. And then we have to take the pen and we have to create honestly, with trust and knowledge that whatever is appearing is just appearing like a rainbow, destined to appear, destined to abide, destined to disappear. So in this way we can pass through our lives with very smoothly, allowing it to arise, allowing it to abide, and allowing it to disappear. But that is not our human nature. We like to attach ourselves and grasp onto whatever is appearing in front of us. So how do we deal with that also? Our perception, that which is human, that which causes us to be human. In this little section I just read, standing in the center of that, standing in the center of our perception with all these judgments and attachments and needs and wants and desires and everything, by standing in the center of all that and seeing it like an overhead, like a bird's eye view, the all-pervasive view of the whole situation, not just looking at it from that side or that side or this side or this side, but from the all-pervasive view, then we can get a very, very good perspective on all these judgments and opinions and things that cause clutter, things that fill up our blank page with lots of information. Your perception remains ever as that nuclear energy of intrinsic awareness that appears as a multitude of its own form, driven by its playful energy and blissful knowledge that it is actually nothing at all. The mirror of awareness ever revealing itself to itself, bliss and emptiness dancing together in inseparable union. So this section of the pen, which I have now completed, it sets the ground for the following sections of the Rainbow Bridge, which now go into more detailed methods as to how to retain or how to maintain that awareness within one's everyday life. I've had comments on the book like, your verses are quite spacey, or are quite sort of, in the clouds, or whatever, but if you read the words carefully, they are absolutely touching the ground, and that's where they're meant to be, in the sky and on the ground at the same time. Because there is nothing without that clear space within which we can create anything we desire. And that means nothing unless it comes into reality, into manifest reality, into actual form. We can dream and dream and dream and dream and dream. And for what purpose are we dreaming? So this is another very, very important point of the Rainbow Bridge, is to see that space and to say, well, I'm going to create something within that space, and to define it and to know what it is and to actually do it. Not to just dream it or think about it, but to actually do it. That is our birthright. That is our birthright as humans. We have the potential to create anything at all. But our lives get wasted because we think that we have to do something like that because it was done like that by our forefathers or by our ancestors or in whatever way, and we get stuck on those habitual tracks which block the space. How can space be blocked? It is just space. I read something very, very interesting the other day which is mind-blowing. It is just totally mind-blowing. It took me some time to fathom it. But if you took all the space out of every single atom of the Empire State Building, it would be no bigger than the size of a bag of sugar. But it would be as heavy as the Empire State Building. So you couldn't lift that bag of sugar. I thought that was just truly amazing because it just makes everything become so spacious. Suddenly you can look through objects. Whoa! Is there really so much space in what seems to be solid? Now let's look at our minds which are filled with thoughts and wishes and desires and wants and everything else. else that fills our minds all day long, whether we know it or not. Sometimes we become aware of it. At odd moments, we get a glimpse of, oh, am I really thinking like that? And if we saw all the space that was actually within those thoughts, they'd probably all disappear and become as small as the bag of sugar compared to the actual size of the Empire State Building. Okay, I'm going to change my tune here because I'm going to talk about how the Rainbow Bridge came into being. And I mean, it's quite an unusual story, really, and one which I have to say I'm not able to really talk about it very comfortably either, because it's something which was very, very personal, something that happened to me that some people think may judge it as a little bit strange, or, you know, am I in my right mind, or, you know, am I going a bit crazy, or whatever. But it truly happened like this, and if I want to find a beginning to start this story, again, it's impossible to find the beginning because, you know, who knows where the beginning was. But I'm going to start at a point where things were getting very close to me coming to the east. And some rather strange things were starting to happen to me. I mean, I'd be driving along in the car, you know, along the main road on my way from one town to another. I used to live in the countryside in England, southern England. So I was often driving between village and town or whatever. And spontaneously I would start getting these strange words coming in my mind, like strings of now I know, mantra. These strange words just started appearing in my mind, and I would start repeating them again and again. And then I'd become aware of it and go, oh, what am I doing? What's going on? These strange words appearing in my mind from nowhere. I have no idea. It's gobbledygook. What does it mean? I have absolutely no idea. I have no point of reference to put these words onto. So I thought, okay, well, I better not tell anybody because they might think I'm going a bit crazy or something. So anyway, it kept on happening. And then I started getting these instructions in my mind. Now, these were quite wrathful, that I must go to Nepal. Nepal? I mean, that's a third the way across the world from England. Go to Nepal? Okay. I mean, okay, why not go for a holiday? Yeah, okay, fine. But I knew it was deeper than that. My inner knowledge, my inner being knew that it was much, much deeper than that, what I was really facing, and I knew that this was a power that I could absolutely not refuse. But being myself rather stubborn and always sort of checking everything that's in my flow, I decided one morning as I was walking the dog across the road. We've got some lovely green fields, flat as flat can be. I mean, there's some gentle sort of undulating hills in the distance, but just across the road from my house are these lovely flat fields. And I was walking the dog out there one morning, and as I was going along the path, these words were coming in my mind, these strange sounds were coming in my mind, and again this go to Nepal, go to Nepal, go to Nepal was appearing stronger and stronger. So at one point I stopped dead on the path, and I thought, right, I'm going to face this, whatever it is. And I knew, of course, it wasn't coming from outside, but I sort of had to create it from coming from outside, otherwise it would seem strange. So I stood there and I looked up into the sky. Really, I did this. And I shouted almost, because there was nobody within earshot, of course, so nobody could hear me. Whoever you are out there, you give me a sign. Right now, I want a sign, okay? If I get a sign, I'm coming immediately to Nepal. If I have no sign, I'm not coming. Full stop. Do you understand? I mean, at least nobody was listening, so, you know, repeating this now because I have, you know, a story to back it up. Otherwise, I'd never tell anybody this. And so there I am, all now indignant and happy that I've got this off my chest, and I'm walking along the road, and I'm kind of looking around. Maybe a little bird is going to come and sing a little song, or something's going to happen. Of course, nothing's happening, yeah. And I'm still walking along the road, and I'm like, ha, okay, now I've put that to rest. Now that can stop. And then I sort of got to the end of the road, and I turned into the field to the right because a lovely space for the dog to run in. And as I turned and I went into this field, I stopped and my knees almost gave way under me, and I looked in front of me and I went, okay, I'm coming to Nepal. And what was in front of me but the tracks of the planes, of the aeroplanes that come across. Where I live in southern England is, you know, it's a flight path, a very frequented flight path, and they leave these white strands of the jet streams behind. You don't see it so much here in India, I don't know why, but in England it's very, very prominent. Maybe it's something to do with the latitude or whatever. And there, in front of me, was a perfect double star, drawn by the aeroplane lines in the sky. And I knew that this star was very, very pertinent to my whatever was going to happen when I came to Nepal. Anyway, within a month and a half, I was in Nepal. And I stayed for 6 years. Anyway, after that, things happened very, very fast. Within the next month, after settling down, finding a house, and all the rest of it, I was in the lap of my guru within seconds. And from that moment on, things changed drastically in my life. I was suddenly under the care of somebody who had the full experience of this inner path of consciousness that I have tried to write down in the Rainbow Bridge. This path from perception to pure awareness. All the stages of the path. And I won't now go into how it is to live very, very close to a highly awakened being, or I should say fully awakened being, because that in itself is another whole presentation, another whole situation. It's just mind-blowing what happens sitting at the feet of a guru who really knows what he's talking about. So to continue, how did the Rainbow Bridge come into being? I'd been already studying for a couple of years under him, about 3 at the time, and I'd done a bit of pilgrimage here and there. You know, I was trotting off to Tibet and trotting off to places in India and trotting off to places in Nepal, and lovely journeys of outer pilgrimage, inner awakening, and yeah, just wonderful times, really. Priceless moments of my life going to these beautiful places in the mountains and in the plains, wherever. And I had decided I was going to go to this very, very special place in Tibet called Pemaku. And so just before I was about to leave, I went to my guru for his blessings. Oh, Guru, please, I'm going to this pilgrimage site, and please give me your blessings for a safe journey, and, you know, and he looked at me and said, no, you are not going there. I said, but with all respect, with all due respect, I have my ticket, I have my hard-gained Tibetan permit, I have my Chinese visa, I have my everything in my passport ready, my bus ticket even. No. You must go to Muktinath. Muktinath? I've already been to Mukti-Nath. You must go to Mukti-Nath. Now, it is not the Guru's job to tell the student what to do. And my Guru was never telling me what to do. You know, they lovingly allow you to make your horrible mistakes and learn from them in true style. But on this one occasion, he was absolutely adamant. You are going to Mukti-Nath. Okay? So I cancelled the visas, permits, everything else, and off I went to Mukti-Nath. A little bit disappointed. I've already been there. Why should I go again? But when I got there, I realized why I was there. I think it was just a few days after arriving that the dream started. And as I was going from place to place, I was meeting people who would just sort of step out of nowhere. It was like I'd entered a completely different realm of being. And these figures would just appear from behind trees and from behind stone buildings or whatever, and I would receive all sorts of little bits of information, and the dreams continued every single night that I was there in the valley. And in the dreams, it was like, I cannot explain to you what it was like. It was like a kind of downloading of information. That's how I can interpret it, like a downloading of information. It wasn't like blah, 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 black and white, black and white. It wasn't like that. It was like a downloading of information, which was like a buzz of sound, like a vibration. And the dreams were just full of these vibrations. And then suddenly, a voice would say, and now look at this very clearly. It's in there, it's in the shape. Look at the shape, look at the shape. If you can see into the shape, you will get the meaning. And if you can get the meaning, then you can write it down. These are the verses, these are the verses. Can you hear them? Have you got it? Did you see it? I would get instructions like this in my dreams. Anyhow, so I didn't write anything down when I was there, but I just let it happen. And when I came back to Kathmandu, I went straight into meditation retreat for 1 month. And it started the day I went into retreat. The verses started appearing one by one. And within 1 month, I had written the whole of the Rainbow Bridge from start to finish. And okay, you know, I'm open to these things, but you know, I'm also, I look at things, I'm also analyzing things and judging things, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of strange, really, why this should appear at this moment, and what is it? And so I asked my Guru, of course, and he nodded. I told him I called it the Rainbow Bridge, and he nodded. He acknowledged, like, and I said, so what do I do with it? He said, well, when the time comes, you will know what to do with it. So, here we are, gathered tonight. Here is the Rainbow Bridge in printed form. I mean, how that happened, again, is another whole story. I mean, from nothing, from a trip to the mountains, instructed by my Guru, appeared some verses whilst I was in retreat, then a commentary of those verses appeared so as to give the reader something to go along with, because these verses are open and are spacious, and in that sense can be interpreted in many different ways. So I wrote down a commentary so that there would not be a misinterpretation of the meaning of the original meaning of the verses. So in that way, the Rainbow Bridge is divided into two aspects: the text, of which I've been reading from tonight, and the commentary, which talks about, in a similar way that I've been talking to you this evening, talks about out the meaning of those verses and how they relate not to some spacey thing that doesn't exist, but to the meaning of our lives, our fundamental reality, our essence, why we are here, what we are doing here, what is our purpose. You know, I'm just very, very happy that I was lucky enough to receive this gift early enough in life, that I can perhaps do something with my life, this rainbow, fleeting moment of time passing from something into nothing, and back again into something, and again into nothing, and again, and again, and again, and again. I leave it open to you to ask any questions you may have.
What made you decide to get it published?
Good question. My husband? I was not going to do anything with this strange text that appeared when I was in the mountains or in my retreat, because I mean, you know, I'm going to be very honest with you. I've had a tough time being able to associate myself with this, with this thing, these verses. You know, what a tough time, because that's maybe the wrong way to describe it, but myself as I appear, as a young Western woman, is the most unlikely picture you can imagine. These verses appearing out of this young Western woman. So I've had a tough time dealing with that, becoming comfortable with that. And writing the commentary was a very, very good way that I became comfortable with it, because, you know, I found how much it meant to my life, and how much it could mean to anybody's life, not just my life, anybody's life. That this is not just for spiritual practitioners. This is spirituality in its functional aspect in our everyday lives as business people, as politicians, as artists, writers. It doesn't matter what we do with our lives. This is the meaning of our life. These two aspects of coming into being from nothing, staying a while, and disappearing again. And we have the power as human beings to bring anything into reality. So when it came to actually publishing The Rainbow Bridge, first of all, there were the verses that appeared in the retreat. Then already 3 years later, it took me 3 years before I started to write the commentary. I just left them as a part. First of all, they were all handwritten. But I'd handwritten them in lots of different colours. That was the nice part. Each section had a rainbow colour and so it was like a bundle of handwritten papers with rainbow colours. I typed it into the computer and then it stayed there as a Word file for 3 years or whatever. Then my husband tells me, you've got to write a commentary on this, otherwise, you know, it may be misinterpreted, or how can people understand the meaning of this? So I looked at this huge task ahead of me, and last year I just did it. You know, we live in a lovely, quiet place in Missouri, in the middle of the forests around Missouri, so it's a very conducive place just to sit and write and be very quiet. And so last year I did that. Then I sat on it a while, and then he says, so you're going to print it now? I said, maybe later, you know? So all this period of time was also myself becoming comfortable with being the author of this book. And indeed, in the author's note, I deny myself as the author. I call myself a scribe. I say, I just wrote this down. It's not really me, it's coming through me, yeah? Somehow. So, in the end, I suppose the time came to publish it, and that was it. We published it. Everything has a natural time frame. I think if we look back at key moments in our life, we find that with everything. You know, we might have wanted something to happen faster, but it took so many years for it to happen, to actually come into reality. And that is the process of manifestation. It takes time.
When you first started receiving the verses, were you happy or disturbed?
It annoyed me like crazy, because you know what would happen in the middle of the night? I'd just gone to sleep and these verses would start appearing, and I'd have to get up, and I'd have to take my piece of paper and I'd have to start writing them. I was like a slave. I was like a servant to these words. So no, I cannot say it was a sense of happiness. Absolutely not. It was more, and it wasn't a drudgery either. I can't put it in that extreme. But it was something that interfered with my set plan. Because in retreat I had quite a strict rule of sessions, yeah? Session starts at 4 o'clock in the morning and ends at 6:30 in the morning, then there's breakfast, and then starts again at 9 o'clock and then ends at 11:30, then there's lunch, and then there's, 4 sessions of long practice and lots of mantra recitation. And so it was good, because it also broke that kind of attachment to the process of the retreat as well. I mean, I'd have to stop. I'd be in the middle of my mantra recitation, and then suddenly another verse would come, and I'd have to put the whole meditation session to one side and go and write this thing. Happy is not a way I describe it. I knew I had to do it.
Do you feel you were privileged to receive it?
Not necessarily. I mean, at the time it felt like a disturbance rather than a privilege, to tell you the truth. But now, of course, I see it's, like I said, I feel so happy to have received this early enough in life that perhaps, if time allows me, I will have time to do something with it, or because of it. It has opened up something that otherwise perhaps would not have opened, and it's given me, so in that sense, yes, privilege. I feel privileged, yes.
You also wonder why you received?
That is a question I try not to ask, because that would take us backwards and backwards and backwards in time. And I did kind of address it to my guru, but it's one of those questions you don't really ask. Why me? Yeah. And I mean, he answered very rationally, really. He said, well, in previous lives you have done practice, and this is a continuation. Quite simple, really. Everything that we've done before is equaling this moment of now, so we just, if we want to know where we've come from, we just have to look at now, where we are right now.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Reincarnation, meaning like one person is becoming another person, or dying and being reborn again? You mean in that sense? Well, again, let's look at it like the rainbow. The rainbow appears out of seemingly nothing, stays a while and then disappears. But then it reappears again in a different place. Maybe in that part of the sky it was just a little arch that long, but in another place it appears as a huge big arch, and in another place it appears as a circle around the sun. So if I were to interpret reincarnation, I would say it's something like that. It's manifesting aspects, appearing in different places at different times, and then disappearing again back into the absolute. Appearing again, disappearing again, appearing again, disappearing again. And I think that just goes on and on forever. We appear in different aspects until we appear as pure consciousness itself.
In the commentaries which you have done, are also something which you got like the verses, or these are your own? Because the verses, as you were pointing out, we have to be at the center of our space and time. And therefore the interpretation can be very different for different people.
Absolutely. And this is a very important point you're
and
making.
Therefore the commentary which has been written is your own, or is it also being dictated like the Quran? I think
very good
the idea
question.
came to me like the Quran, where somebody dictated
No,
the tenets of a certain religion to somebody, and the commentary was also his own, and that it became very rigid.
Very
so is
good
it flexible or is it rigid?
Very, very good question. A very good question, because when I was writing the commentary, I also had to keep this idea of being the pen, yeah, in my mind, and to write so that there was no judgment from one or another side, just the essential meaning being repeated again and again. I can give you an example. Let's see. I'll try to find an example quickly. I mean, the commentary, for example, to the first verse of the pen, the page is blank, the pen wet, poised above the pregnant emptiness. Anything may arise, may appear in forms that speak their truth through a multitude of displays. So this is what I write. The page here refers to the absolute ground of all phenomena, yet unmanifest, but ready to burst into any display at all, whilst the pen refers to the power of creativity of that empty space, seething with the energy of its own creativity. Both its empty and creative aspects, inseparably united, are the makeup of essential awareness mind, which is here referred to as pregnant emptiness. Like the page that is ready to give birth to any appearance upon its blank surface, and accept it fully without attachment or rejection to its relative meaning, so is the pen wet with the ink of skillful means, ready to spill out its perfectly encoded meaning, knowledge of an ultimate reality contained within the words that appear on the page. In this way, by simply resting mind in its natural state, the ink is the method for the pen to unite with the page, the nectar of creativity of the spacious birthground of all phenomena, now appearing as words containing their essential meaning.
If we were to take our past life as a blank page, and we were to use the pen of our thoughts to sort of reconstruct that past life on those blank pages, somewhere in our philosophy we do believe that we can actually recreate that bridge between the past and the now. And I don't say this, I'm quoting from Swami Vivekananda, who says it is not in doubt whether you had a past life. It is absolutely certain that you can construct to the minutest detail everything in your past life, if only you will apply your thoughts to what has been your past. So to some extent, the bridge can also be between
time spanning.
My question to you is that one of our philosophers, great philosophers, Kabir, did say that many of us fall into the trap of trusting our gurus, because many of them are brought up on half-baked truths and may not have gone through realizations, but because we have a guru shishya tradition, they enforce what they know onto their disciples, who are in no position to question and have to blindly follow the gurus. At what point in your journey did you have a realization that you could trust him?
When my guru,
and what was that made you trust him?
when he passed away. It was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life, was when my guru passed away. It was in 2007, January 2007. Suddenly everything became the guru. Absolutely everything and everyone. He was infused into everything and everyone. It was the most mind-blowing experience I've ever had in my life. then I knew without a doubt what the Guru was, or how I should perceive the Guru. The Guru was not just a physical form of a man, an old man who, looked like a guru, but the Guru was everything and everywhere, simultaneously, all the time. It was just wonderful. And I suppose that this is also how I've interpreted the meaning of the Guru in the Rainbow Bridge, is that the Guru is everything that appears, anyone that appears. If we see the essential meaning of everything and everyone, it is the Guru. Always. But it took my Guru to pass away for me to realize that. So that was a shame. But the Guru has a wonderful way of teaching. Even in passing, his passing was a wonderful teaching. Anybody else?
We have one important, very interesting point that you made. Slightly elaborate on it. And right at the beginning, you said this particular structure that we have here. And it's probably happened because of a multitude of reasons. And you gave a little synopsis of what could happen if you invited somebody over for coffee, and then you invited a third person, and you went for coffee, and you went for a movie, and then two architects got together and decided to build a skyscraper. So how far back in time and space can you sort of go back and construct? What happened that led to this movie?
I don't know. I have to start with this moment of walking along.
Did it start from this moment?
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. And I believe that these little seeds of potential that we carry with us will appear at the right time and the right place, and when the causes and conditions are manifest for them to appear. I mean, what came for this book to appear was, how many causes and conditions had to be in place is unbelievable. But let's not just talk about a book. How many causes and conditions have to be in place for us, all of us? I think we've come from all over the place. All of us have come from, and this will never happen again. That we, us lot, together sit in one room at a particular moment in time. Can it happen again? Like this? And in every moment of our life we have this amazing coming together of causes and conditions, and if we see that essential point, it's really wonderful to walk through life and to see all these moments that are coming together, and people who gather around us, and it's a huge interpretation without any words.
One color is red, and one is violet. Which one do you like more, and why?
Oh, now you're pushing me into a corner. I have to make a judgment. I have to make a decision. I have to make an interpretation. Well, okay, tonight, since I'm wearing purple beads, I'm going to say violet. But that's only because I got these on tonight. Okay, thank you all very much for coming. And please do, you can pick up a copy here if you like. And anyway, be on your way.